Hey everybody, I'm JJ, you're watching Reality Survival. So welcome to the new America. If you don't realize that we live in a different country, a different era now, then you're really not paying attention. That's my guess. So today we're going to talk about 15 ways to survive the new America. And for those of you guys who are faithful subscribers, thank you very much. Some of this might be a little repetitive, but according to the YouTube analytics, about 95% of people who watch these videos are not subscribed. So if that's one of you guys, then go ahead and hit the subscribe button. So we know that governments are corrupt and they should never be trusted. You should always keep a skeptical eye, right? But I think one of the things that we've learned at this point now is that the government is probably not our biggest threat right now. And it's more likely to be the banks and the giant tech corporations. There is a lot going on with regard to a restructuring of the financial system across the world right now. A lot of people talk about it as the Great Reset. Other people talk about it as a New World Order or whatever. If you want to talk about it, the Bilderberg Group, it doesn't really matter. It's the world's richest people making changes so that they can have more control. That's the bottom line on what it is. Whatever you want to consider it. And here's the thing. This is just all my opinion, right? I'm not an expert in any of this crap, but you guys watch the channel because you want to know my opinion. I don't think, the more and more I look into this and the more I research this stuff and just hear things that are happening and all that kind of stuff, the more it seems like to me the economy is not going to collapse the way you think it is. And what I mean by that is that these large banks and businesses have acquired so much wealth and power. You could say what you want about them, but they got to where they are because they're smart. All right. They ain't stupid. You don't become billionaires and nearly trillionaires for some of these people by being idiots. And that's just a reality of the matter. They are not going to, let me back up. I always look at problems from just the basic human condition, right? When people like that get in power and or have power, they are unlikely to give it up, especially easily, so they're not going to push for something that's going to make them less powerful or less wealthy. So what is being pushed for is, because they realize the system is not entirely sustainable and they want to change it in their favor. And so that is happening. So I don't think there's going to be a collapse in the true sense of the word. I think what we're going to see is a financial revolution where things are going to change in how business is done and the way that the lens that everything is viewed through. One example of this, and where the banks, I think, are probably going to become tyrannical, is through what's called an ESG score. Some of you guys may have heard of this. It's something along the lines of environmental, social justice, and corporate governance. It's kind of the three things that it stands for. And you can think of this as like a new credit score, or some people in China call it, they're calling it your social credit score. This is already a thing. Okay, it's not theoretical. It's not something that's going to happen. People are already being assigned ESG scores, especially in the financial space. Okay? I think it's only a matter of years, maybe, maybe multiple months to a couple of years before we start to see this kind of score be implemented on very personal levels as well, on a widespread basis. Okay, even if you're not in that financial space or in a business kind of space or whatever, it's going to start with businesses and everything. And I don't know what the time frame is, but then it'll probably come to people as well. And what my big fear is right now is that banks are going to become tyrannical in the sense that they are going to start limiting what companies they will do business with and transact with. And this has already started to a certain degree with some of the gun industry people a couple of years ago. And then it sort of died down. We didn't hear a lot about it. With the creation of these new ESG scores, I think it's going to ramp up significantly. That's my guess. Okay, this isn't. I mean, I don't predict things really, but it just seems like this is what's the writing is on the wall, And the reason I'm getting to this is because I don't think that gun confiscation is something that is on their agenda. I've said this for a long time to you guys, and that is because logistically it's very, very difficult to do. But if the big banks decide to stop doing transactions and financial services, offering financial services to people with a bad ESG score, and public health, right, is part of that social justice thing, and that's where guns will come into that probably, then I think that these companies that manufacture firearms and all that kind of stuff, it's going to become extremely difficult for them to operate. And in other areas, recently we've seen targeted attacks on the company Gab, on the social website, gab.com. They are already having financial issues and financial difficulties finding a place to bank, according to one article that I saw. We saw Parler. It's never going to be the same as what it was, even though it's back online. I doubt that it's going to ever, unless they can get onto the app stores, but I don't think it's going to, really take off again. But they are probably going to experience financial issues as well. Now, and I can see, these gun companies experiencing the same things. So as opposed to, and hey, I might be wrong. Here in a couple of months, the Congress, they might pass assault weapons bans and all that kind of stuff. And then if that's the case, then that's the case. I don't really think they're going to get that crazy. I think they'll probably go for universal background checks. That's probably going to happen. That's my guess anyway. Maybe some sort of magazine ban or something like that, but I don't think they're going to go push too much further than that. We'll see. Who knows? I know they'll try. There'll be lots of bills that are introduced and stuff, but whether or not they actually get into committee and get voted on in both houses and all that, or passed both houses, I think is a different story. But anyway, this revolution is taking place, and if you're a business owner, you need to understand this and start to either figure out ways to be independent from that system, or get with the program and figure out ways to operate within it, right? Because it's coming. Okay, I'm telling you, it's coming. There's no stopping this at this point. And my guess is that this is all leading to a digital currency. And I've told you about this for a long time. I think I did a video on like my guess for my top 10 kind of SHTF situations, probably 4 or 5 years ago, talking about a digital currency. And a lot of people at the time were kind of like, what are you talking about? They're not getting rid of cash, and all that. Well, we're already 97% digital. So with this reset and the ESG scores and all this kind of stuff, it seems quite likely to me that we're going to see a digital currency. And whether or not that is Fed coin or whether it is, going to some variant of Bitcoin or something like that, I don't know. I don't know how this is going to materialize. But what I do know is that if you're not comfortable with cryptocurrency, you need to be. You need to start figuring out how to use cryptocurrency, what it is, buy some, do some research, man, just start dabbling in it, because the whole market cap just went over $1 trillion. So I don't think that it's going to go away anytime soon. It's probably only going to get bigger. Now, there could be a point at which when governments try to make it illegal. And if that's the case, that would be a hard stroke for the market, but it's so decentralized, it would be very difficult to enforce that. So I would urge you to look into the digital space. All right. Now I'll put a link in the description that I'm just going to share from my Coinbase account. And Coinbase is one of the kind of exchangers and wallet kind of all wrapped into one, where you can buy some cryptocurrencies. And you can't buy every kind of cryptocurrency on there. You can get just I wouldn't say that maybe the more stable ones, but some of the ones that Coinbase has deemed to be safe, or not. That's not a good word. Not safe. Your investment's never safe in any of these cryptocurrencies right now. It's pretty volatile, but more stable, I guess. Less prone to, big pump and dump schemes. And hacking, maybe. I don't know. I'm not really sure what their criteria is, but Coinbase is probably the biggest, most widely used exchanger / wallet or whatever. There's lots of other ones out there. Jack's wallet is one that comes to mind. There's lots of different ones, but the whole point of this video is not to really sell you on any one thing or another, just to urge you to start looking into it, right? And if the easiest way that I know, the simplest and the most user-friendly way that I know to get into the cryptocurrency space is through Coinbase. So that's why I'll have that link down there. If you buy $100 worth of Bitcoin or something else, then they'll give me $10. So whatever that is, it's worth for you. That's just out there as transparency. But I would encourage you to start looking at it, because I know a lot of people say, what the hell is this? I don't really understand it and all that kind of stuff. And I hear you. You just need to learn for yourself. You need to do some research to understand it, okay? Because it is here to stay. If you are not going to take advantage of it, then that's fine. Don't take advantage of it, but you need to understand it, because it's going to be part of the world you live in going forward, I think. Let's see. All right. Yeah, so the banks aren't going to lose. The system as a whole isn't going to collapse. They might. Now, your money might become worthless. The dollar may become worthless. There may be some big transitional period where we, the people, not the upper echelon, but the middle and lower class, we might lose our retirements, our money, those kinds of things. That could absolutely happen, through inflation or hyperinflation or whatever the case may be. That kind of stuff could definitely happen. But what I'm saying is, your home values may plummet. I mean, there's lots of different ways that the system can take a dump and not completely collapse. So that's really the point that I'm trying to get to you. So I'm not trying to say exactly how it's going to happen. And I'm not saying that you're not going to lose money, because it's quite possible that we all could experience big loss. What I'm saying is the people that run the system are not going away. All right, so you need to figure this out. You need to understand that their goals are to create a dependent society. All right. And the way that you fight that is by becoming more independent. All right. So the way I like to think about it is there's this fence that's pointing us in the direction that the world is going to go. And I say you should have one foot on one side of the fence, understanding the way that the new world is operating, and then the other foot on the other side of the fence, figuring out ways that you can operate independently from that system. Okay? Because if you just try to just step back and not pay attention and not learn and all those kinds of things, you're going to find yourself in a world where you can't do anything, you can't make any difference, you can't be a force for good, and you're just isolated. And maybe that's okay for you, right? But I think most people want to try to make a difference. And so in order to be able to make a difference, we have to understand how the system operates. We have to understand the world that we live in, all right? That's reality. You got to understand the reality that you live in. Okay, so now let's go ahead and get to these 15 suggestions. Sorry that it's taken so long to get to this point, but all this stuff needs to be talked about because a lot of people are just not going to want to recognize that this is happening, and it is happening. So anyway. All right, number one, dump your social media before your ESG is created. And I don't know when this is going to happen, but it's probably going to happen soon. Now, there may be a counter argument for this, and I'm going to take a little bit of time with each one of these, so this video might be a little longer. There could be a counter argument to establish profiles on like an online computer, but not on your handset, and make those profiles appear to be, connected to your name, to your actual name, and make them appear to be like, super environmentally friendly, super social justice warrior-y, and, those kinds of things. And then don't ever access those accounts from a cellular device, or, only access them through VPN. I don't know. Essentially what I'm saying is there might be some value in having an alternate account that appears to be in line with the right social norms. Or you could go the other way, which is the way I've chosen to go, and that is just not to have any of those accounts as a general rule. Obviously I have YouTube still, but pretty much none of the rest. So the level to which these companies spy on you cannot be overstated. It is unbelievable the amount of information that they have access to, and how to the degree to which they are following you. And so I highly recommend, with maybe some few exceptions, but I think that you really should get rid of those accounts. As a person who believes in the Second Amendment, I can only imagine that these are going to be a liability for you and are going to translate into you having problems down the road in one way or another. So hopefully that is clear. Number two is select your news sources carefully. It's important to stay abreast to what's going on so that you can figure out what's happening. Now, a lot of people get their news from social media, and they're like, JJ, you just said get rid of your social media. How am I going to find my news? Well, what I recommend doing is take your email address, not Gmail. Get rid of any Google product that you have. As much as possible. At least don't have the apps installed on your phone and all that kind of stuff. And I know Google Maps is better than Apple Maps or whatever, but use Waze or something different. Just get rid of any Google product you have. That's all I can say. Where was this one? Oh, I was going with Number 2 on the list here is select your news sources carefully. So go out to the websites. I like Proton Mail. That's the email I use. It's pretty secure. And sign up for the email lists from the news producers that you think are fairly credible. Another way that you can do this, or at least get access to them fairly easily, is by getting an app on your phone called Conservative News that allow you to pick the different news sources that you want to see. So it's not too bad, and it's still actually on the App Store for the time being. But if nothing else, then you can at least use that to help you figure out what are some different conservative news sources, and then go there and sign up on their email lists, okay? And that's something that you need to select for yourself, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not here to tell you what politics, maybe you like liberal news sources, whatever. Maybe you want to get a little mix of both so you can see what both sides are saying. That's probably intelligent too. My point is that have your news delivered to your email box as opposed to getting it from social media. All right, it's really pretty easy to do. In about 30 minutes you can set it up where you get tons of email a day. You can keep up on all the headlines, and you reduce your digital footprint significantly by doing that. Okay, number 3 is reduce your ability to be tracked. This is a big one, all right? These companies don't only track where you go, what you do, what stores you visit, what people you're around, whether you're standing or sitting and all that kind of stuff. They also track your habits, and you know, the places that you visit the most often, and like all these kinds of things. Like they track a lot about what you do and who you are as a person and all that kind of stuff. So start weaning yourself off your cell phone. If you don't need to have it with you, don't take it with you. Or at least, as a very minimum, go into the settings and lock down everything as much as you can. Make it as secure as possible. Remove as many apps as possible that you don't need. Delete them, get rid of them, even out of your library, not just off your phone, but off your app library. Get rid of as many of those things as possible. And you know, what about a flip phone? I'm seriously considering going to a flip phone myself. I'm not 100% there, but I'm almost there. The more and more I learn about all the craziness that's going on, that's kind of like I'm leaning back towards that situation. Okay, that's enough on that one. Number 4, use more secure tools online. The Brave browser, Proton Mail, Proton VPN. It's a virtual private network. It allows you to mask where your IP address is coming from when you visit sites so that they can't track you as much. The Brave browser is pretty good about locking down tracking and stuff as well. And then use like DuckDuckGo for your web search. And then I like to use Signal for like messaging communications and stuff. Signal, despite the Fox News article that came out a little while ago saying that it had been cracked and all this kind of stuff, if you read the actual article, that's not true. All that happened is the law enforcement agency basically was able to open the phone and see what's on the phone, what's in their app, right? Okay, well, you can do that with any app if it's on the phone. That doesn't mean the app's not secure. It just means that they actually got access to the phone itself. So if a law enforcement agency gets access to your phone, they're going to be able to see what's on it. That's just common sense. But that doesn't mean that the app itself isn't secure, in that the communications are encrypted and you can only see it on the user's end and the other user's end, on the two ends. The company doesn't actually have access to that material. So that's important to understand. So I like Signal, and I just need to reiterate, get rid of any Google product that you can think of off of your phone. Okay, number 5 is invest in tangibles, i.e. stock up, all right? It's really likely that we're going to see inflation, and I'm not going to go into a whole big lesson about inflation, but essentially that means that your dollar will buy less and less as time goes on. So a carton of eggs today might be $2 or $4 or whatever it is. And then, 6 months from now, it might go up 30% or 40% or 50% or 60% or whatever, and you won't be able to buy as much with the dollars, the same amount of goods. So if you get tangibles now, things that you can actually hold in your hand that you're going to need or use or whatever, then you're going to be saving yourself money. Now, this could be just basic food, water supplies, just the basic kind of prepping things. It could also be sanitary products. It could be, toilet paper and tampons and shampoo and, all that kind of stuff. Maybe fuel storage. I mean, fuel's gone up, 60 cents just since Biden's taken office, 60 cents a gallon, and it's probably going to be worse. So, invest in tangibles is one potential way to fight, or at least help minimize what's coming and be a little bit more independent. Number 6, buy American when possible. The assault on small businesses is just beginning. The pandemic or plandemic or whatever you want to call it was an assault on small business. All right. That is very clear. Whether or not it was intentional, you could try to make that argument, but to me, it was intentional. They put the hammer to small businesses, and I think it's going to continue. I think that's going to continue, and we're going to see a lot less stuff when they start implementing these ESG scores and all that kind of stuff. There's going to be companies that are not going to be, able to do all the environmentally friendly things and all this kind of stuff, and they're going to end up finding themselves in a hurting space. So, buy American, and then this ties into number 7, shop locally. Support local businesses to the extent possible. Even if the products that you happen to buy in that store aren't maybe American made, at least the company is an American company. I mean, the reality of the world is the majority of manufactured goods are now manufactured not in America, okay? So you can only do so much when it comes to buying American, all right? But at least you can support companies that are here in America and that aren't the big tech giants and all that kind of stuff. And look, I'm under no illusion that that I'm not going to ever use Amazon again or anything like that. I still have an affiliate with them. I appreciate you guys who use those things, but try to get the stuff that you need locally if possible American made. And if you still can't get it, then if you use the affiliates or whatever, that's cool. And for those people who say I'm not going to use it ever again, that's cool too. I don't have any problem with it. Do what you can, but it's difficult to find things. I mean, some stuff, it's hard not to go to Amazon or Walmart or whatever. That's just the reality of the world that most people live in nowadays. So if you can manage to eliminate those big companies altogether, good on you. All right, good on you. I got no problems with that whatsoever. Okay, so shop locally, buy American. Number 8, invest in precious metals. And by that, I primarily mean lead and brass and a handy way to dispense them, at least as long as they're still being made and sold. It may become much more difficult to get ammo and to get at least foreign manufactured rifles. Executive power, through executive power alone, I'm fairly certain that Biden could stop the importation of foreign made ammo and weapons on his own. And that's possible that he could do that. So get ammo while you can get it. It's still being imported currently. There's plenty of American-made manufacturers. I highly recommend you use those, as I just said. But supply and demand is a real thing. So sometimes you got to go elsewhere. And I'm not talking, when I say precious metals, I'm really not talking about gold and silver. If you've got all your preps squared away, you've done everything that you can do, you're totally ready, then maybe look at gold and silver. But until then, I don't think that's something that is right for most people. But Maybe it is. Maybe diversifying, a small percentage is smart for you. I don't know. Okay. Number 9 is develop personal networks. I think this might be one of the most important ones on here. And I'm not just talking about prepper groups or mag groups and all those kinds of things. Southern Prepper One had a video just the other day, and I've always thought that he was one of the thought leaders in this community. For a long time, he's talked about a lot of things, and he's been pretty good on different things. But he was talking about the idea of mags and mutual assistance groups and prepper groups and all that kind of stuff. And he's saying a lot of these groups are separated by physical distance from a long ways from each other. And the idea that during some sort of a crisis that you're going to expect other people to show up to your house and be able to help you is putting those people in a really dangerous situation, asking them to come during, some sort of disaster, especially if it was a without rule of law situation, because traveling the roads and all that kind of stuff could become very dangerous. And I think his point goes to the point that I have been talking to you guys about for many years, and that is that your family, your close friends, and your neighbors are the people that you should be concentrating on networking with the most, because the people that are geographically closest to you are the people that have the most ability to help, and who also have a shared interest in keeping your region secure. So make personal networks, all right, and that's not just with the neighbors and stuff for like a mag or a prepper group or whatever, but that's also in food supply. How are you gonna buy goats and chickens and ducks and whatever? How are you going to get a half side of beef or a full side of beef, or depending on how much freezer space you have and whatever? Who's the person that you're going to go to, in your area? Do you know who that is? And have you done business with them? Start establishing those networks now. Look at this from all different kinds of angles in business networks, and then the network that you have and operate. Finding intelligence. I've done a couple lessons on intelligence gathering and stuff on the website, AmericanPreppingAcademy.com. You've got to build in-person networks, all right? And physically write those numbers down. have a list of people and contacts and those kinds of things in your emergency binder. If you don't know what should be in an emergency binder, there is a list on AmericanPreppingAcademy.com. Okay, let's see here. So develop personal networks. Number 10, homeschool your children. All right. We are homeschooling our youngest. The other two are already out of school. And I cannot recommend this enough, because the level of indoctrination and propaganda that is being taught in schools is off the charts. All right, it's really getting ridiculous, and it's not just through health class or teaching critical race theory or something like that. It's permeating all aspects of history and math, believe it or not. I mean, all different kinds of ways that they are contorting what your children are reading. And a lot of people will say, well, I can't do it. I don't have the time. I don't have the money and all that kind of stuff. And let me just suggest to you that I understand that it's hard financially, but you can do this for a couple $100s a month. There's a lot of online programs and stuff like that are very, very good curriculums. And you might say, well, I want my kid to be socialized and all those kinds of things. And I would just say to you, one, don't put so much emphasis on socialization as put emphasis on learning and how much learning your child is taking place. And B, there's other ways that you can socialize your kid. You can get them in jujitsu classes. You can get them in, like play groups or church groups or, those kinds of things. There's lots of different ways that you can do this. And I just think it's worth it to invest in your children's future. All right. And I know a lot of people don't agree with it and all that kind of stuff, but why would you want to expose your kid to all the crap and craziness that's going on in the new world, in this new America? It doesn't seem smart to me. So homeschool your children. That's number 10. Number 11, get involved locally. I did a whole video talking about this, so I'm not going to hammer this home too much. But if you are not, if we do not have a very significant percentage of people running the county election systems by the time the next election comes, then we're going to continue to lose. All right? I've said it before and I'll say it again. The only people we have to blame for losing this election is ourselves, because we did not have enough people at the local polling stations to stop all this madness from happening. You can blame it on lots of different people, but ultimately it comes back to we, the people, who are not involved enough. And those people on the far left were. They were involved enough and they took advantage of it. So we can't allow them to take that advantage again if we want to keep any kind of integrity in our election systems. And I understand there's lots of uphills, with HR1 and all these different kind of things that they're putting into effect, but we've got to show up. We've got to be present. We've got to learn how our counties work, and we need to get resolutions like sanctuary counties for gun safety, or not gun safety, but for gun rights put in place so that we don't have, at least we have some sort of legal recourse and protection when some of the changes come down the pipe, because and it's just good practice anyway to figure out how your government works. So you pick a cause, and that's what that other video was about. There's lots of different potential causes and ways to be more free, but pick one and try to get it, passed in your county. Okay, number 12, become debt-free. Reduce your reliance on banks, credit card companies, car companies, etc., etc. Every dollar you're not giving them in interest is one less dollar they can use against us. I've talked to you guys many times over the years about the Dave Ramsey way of getting out of debt. That's what I've used in the past, and it has worked very well. If you just follow his steps, his book, Total Money Makeover, you will get out of debt. All right, and then whether or not you choose to stay out of debt is up to you. But that is one good way to do it, and I highly recommend it. Okay, number 13, get involved in a church. Make human connections and don't support watered down nonsense. Find a church leader with a spine who's willing to tell the truth about what's going on. Now, some of you guys aren't religious, and I'd say that's fine. You don't have to be religious, but if you look around your life and you don't have anybody else to connect with, why not try it? Okay, and maybe you just say, well, I'm not going to believe it. Okay, that's cool too. Fake it. That's okay. Go to church, hear the message, connect with people, and if you think, no, aliens are what created this world or whatever, we came from nothing, that's cool too. It doesn't matter. You don't have to buy into it to be there. That they can't control what you think inside your head. But what you'll find is most churches are going to be welcoming. They're going to want to get to know you, and you can say, look, I'm not sure that I'm a believer. I don't know, but I'm coming here because I want to get to know some people and I want to hear the message and learn more about it. And I'm just going to be open-minded, and just say that. And what happens as a consequence of this is that you will get to know a whole bunch of people who you didn't know. And as a general rule, most of them are going to be pretty good folks. There's bad apples in all kinds of groups and even at churches. But they're probably going to have the best intentions for you for the most part. And you could create a network there that you were not able to connect the way you've always been doing things, right? And I'm not a big preachy Bible guy. I'm not going to, do any lessons or any of that kind of stuff. I've been a Christian for a long time, but I would just say one of the most repeated comments that I have seen on my channel over the past decade is, I don't know anybody. And I don't have, none of my neighbors are trustworthy. I can't talk to them about prepping. I don't know where I can find other people that are like-minded and all that kind of stuff. And I'm not saying that all people who are in church are preppers, because that's not the case. But there are people you can talk to, right? And after the year that we've had in 2020, it would be really easy to convert people into prepping at a church. Really easy if you have even just a little bit of common sense. So I would just encourage you to go to church. Like I said, I don't really care if you believe or not. That's up to you, right? That's something that you got to come to on your own. But go there and just meet people and talk to people and join a home group. Go. I've found some of the best friends that I have made were through small groups, at churches where they, come together and they study different, passages in the Bible and all those kinds of things. And like I said, if you don't believe it, just look at it as history, right? Because it's well documented history, right? All this stuff is thoroughly documented, much more so than a lot of other history that we learn. So look at it as from a history perspective. If you don't want to look at it as a spiritual perspective. So just a thought. I'm not a big church guy, like I said. It's not what the purpose of my channel is, and I don't go into that a whole lot. But I think that the value of making personal connections and being a part of something bigger is really important right now. Okay, let's see. Number 14 is move to a conservative state/county, or at least someplace less terrible. Okay. If you live in a blue county that is, irrevocably controlled by Democrats, and there's no hope of flipping it red, please consider moving. It's going to be harder and harder and harder to live in those places as time goes on and the madness gets much worse. I get that you have family close by. I get that it's difficult financially. I get that your job is, right there and you don't want to have to commute and all those kinds of things. But if you're watching this channel, there's a reason. There's something inside of you that's saying something doesn't feel right. I don't like the way that the direction of everything is heading, and I need to do something. Your life will improve significantly if you get outside of the big cities. Maybe it's to suburbia. Maybe for some people, moving from a big city out to suburbia is a good step for you. Maybe, the majority of you probably already live in suburbia. Why not move out to a little more rural area? In most places, you add 20 to 30 minutes to your commute and you can be out in a rural place, in a pretty rural spot where you can have a couple acres or whatever the case may be, and you can become more independent through homesteading and all that kind of stuff. It might hurt a little bit, but I promise you, you will sleep better when it happens. And you will never look back and say, man, I still wish I lived in the city. It'll never happen. You will be so thankful that you got out of the city. So do that. Okay, number 15 is raise your children to be warriors for truth, justice, and the American way, the real American way. This one might be the most important on the whole list, really, in serious significance. Countries tend not to fail overnight. They generally, and not in every instance, but generally, they take a long time to decline. And one of the things that I've said for a long time since I started the channel is that statistically and probably it's more likely that 10 or 20 or 30 years down the road, we'll all look back and go, ah, how did we get here? You know, there was just not one big massive event that caused everything to fall apart, but it was just a slow progression, the long, slow slide down this hill of control and tyranny and all this kind of stuff. And eventually we look back and we're like, God, how did this happen? That's probably the reality, right? And so I would encourage you to teach your children real history. Teach them how important it is to speak the truth. Teach them what real justice is, and teach them what America stands for and our values, you know. And this doesn't necessarily need to be done through a homeschool program. This should be done by you, you know. You should sit down and make your children read the Constitution, make them read the Declaration of Independence and help answer their questions about it and those kinds of things. Like, they need to understand our founding and where we came from and why we're here and all that kind of stuff. That's super important. And teach them to be warriors. You know, teach them to defend themselves. Teach them how to use firearms correctly and safely. Teach them to be sheepdog, right? There's three kinds of people in this world: sheepdogs, wolves, and sheep. Who do you want your kid to be, you know? So it's important to invest in your children and spending time with them and teaching them to be the kind of person that you want to be and you want them to be. Because in all likelihood, they may be the ones that have to do this fight, right? That actually are the ones that see this materialize in the way that a lot of us thought it was going to for a long time. A lot of people think that we're heading for a civil war. And I have said for quite a while that I don't believe that we are, and I really don't think there's any statistical significantly big chance of this happening as long as we don't see states seceding from the Union. Once we start to see states seceding from the Union, then I think that we could potentially go there. But I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. I really don't. It's possible, but I don't think so. The only way logistically that there could be a protracted civil war like that is if one of the forces, the insurgent force or the freedom fighters or the guerrillas or whatever you want to call them, they have to be able to have a place to safely operate from. Because if prepper group, militia, whatever you want to call it in Texas decides, hey, we're going to go and kidnap the governor or something stupid like that, like they did in Michigan, that same outcome is going to happen, right? That same outcome is going to happen. Those people are going to be arrested, and then that movement is crushed, and then life goes on. And that group just gave the left a whole bunch of reasons to take more of our freedom. So it ain't going to happen until states start to secede from the Union. That's the only way it's going to happen, I think. I don't understand. I can't foresee any potential way that you could engage in a protracted conflict without having a safe harbor to go to. So take that for what it's worth. Move towards becoming more independent, both in the cyber realm as well as in the physical realm. Try to, you know, becoming a homesteader is kind of the ultimate way to reduce dependency as much as possible. It's what we're trying to do here. We had a lot to do getting set up. We finally got some chickens, which I'll show you guys in another video here shortly, once it's not such a muddy mess out there. But we're going to be trying to do other things as well, you know, ducks, rabbits, goats, whatever we can do, we're going to try to do. You know, it takes time raising, potentially at some point, maybe raising a cow or something like that to be able to butcher. You know, we're trying to strive in that direction. And, you know, you can too. And even in your own circumstance, there's things that you can do to try to become more independent. So anyway, guys, if you're not signed up on my email list, please head over to AmericanPreppingAcademy.com. Sign up for that email list, and then when I get new content, I can email you the content as it comes out instead of having to rely on, you know, YouTube and all that kind of stuff, or these social media platforms. I probably only send out maybe an email a month, if that. I don't spam you, you know, and all that kind of stuff. And in that email, I'll just have a list of a bunch of, you know, different videos that I put out or blog posts that I put up, and then maybe some affiliate links or something along those lines, you know, that you can help support the channel with. I don't do the Patreon thing anymore, and I don't do, that's pretty much the only way that I get any income from this, aside from whatever YouTube decides to throw out, which isn't much. It's just through affiliates mostly. So I appreciate the support for those of you guys who do that stuff. That is awesome. And I'll see you on another video here shortly. Take care, guys. Oh, don't forget to live the 6 Ps. Proper prior preparation prevents poor performance. Stay safe.